Swords, battle axes, and medieval fare are at the heart of our next film review. Hello to everybody there, and thanks once again for returning to one of my movie reviews. I am movie critic Nick Iacobucci, and our next movie review is going to be for The Green Knight. Now, this film opened up in wide release on Friday, July 30th, 2021, and it stars the on-screen talents of Dev Patel, Academy Award winner Alicia Vikander, Joel Edgerton, and Sarita Chadhuri. I hope I'm not butchering that too badly. This film comes to us from writer and director David Lowery, the man that brought us the double feature starring Robert Redford known as The Old Man and the Gun and Peach Dragon from just a few years ago. Now, this film retells the fantasy and medieval tale of Sir Gawain and the Green Knight. Well, people, before I get into the movie review, I am going to tell you that this is the first time I've done a movie review in about 4 years, and I'm not going to be doing movie reviews like I used to years ago, but going forward, I would really like to do 1, maybe 2 movie reviews per month, like the big movies that are coming up, so any support would be greatly appreciated. Okay, getting back to the movie review, I'm not going to spoil anything, but I'm also not going to explain the story of Sir Gawain and the Green Knight. The film itself assumes that you know the story going in, and I'm going to assume that you know it when you watch this movie review. Okay, this is going to bring me straight to writer and director and editor David Lowery, who, first off the bat, I have many things to compliment when it comes to the writer and director, but I also have some negatives, and we'll get to those later on in the review. But to first compliment David Lowery, he begins the movie with these long, continuous shots. Now, they're not like 5 minutes like the beginning of Halloween, but they are like 1 minute. You can tell when he splits the film and goes on to another cut, but they are impressive. They follow the main characters at the beginning of the film, and not only are the shots themselves impressive, but it also outlays like the living conditions and the costumes and the period piece, and it really sets up a lot just visually with his style. This reminded me a lot of David Yates, the man that directed the last 4 Harry Potter films, and I believe the first 2 Fantastic Beasts films, if I'm not mistaken. But he was almost always, but very subtly, moving the camera through these castles and forests and landscapes, and you really get a sense of feeling where this movie is taking place, like you're almost there with the characters while it's unfolding. So you really get a sense of these places. He also has very quality use of lighting, like Inarritu from The Revenant. He uses natural light outside to its most effectiveness, but also the interior shots that he puts forth on screen are just as beautiful and just as exquisite and just as elegant. Definitely adds to the entire mood of the film. This film was made on $15 million, and as I was watching it, I had to look that up just to make sure that that was right. Now, one of the things that I like to compliment filmmakers when they can accomplish this is when they can make a lot out of a little. And David Lowery is the definition of this, because he made The Old Man and the Gun with Robert Redford on less than $15 million, I think. He made Peach Dragon look like a $125 million film on a fraction of that at $50 million. And then he makes this movie, which looks like a $50-60 million film on just $15 million. So I really have to tip my hat to the guy, because he makes the film look extremely more expensive than it actually is. Something else, another visual treat that David Lowery gives us is when swords are being wielded in this film, there's a lot of times there's like a color tint to the sword that's being, wielded. And I think that was a direct throwback to Excalibur, John Borman's masterpiece from 1981, where every time Excalibur is shown, it has like a green tint to it. Now, I know this is The Green Knight, and that's part of the reason that it's green, but it really seemed like a direct homage to John Borman's Excalibur. Now, I am going to compliment David Lowery because he seems to be a very talented man and wears many hats behind the camera. He's not only the writer and director, but I also found out that he's also the editor. So I really have to tip my hat to him, because he reminds me of the likes of like Robert Rodriguez, who's like the editor and the composer and the director and the writer, or like John Carpenter, who also does the music as well as writes and directs. But this really reminded me more of like an auteur, like Peter Hyams, who's throughout his career, he was not only a director, but he was also his own director of photography, which is extremely difficult to do. I do compliment David Lowery for being able to do these, but there is a negative that comes into play, and I'll address that in a little bit. Some other technical aspects, I loved the sound design. I don't believe that there's an Oscar for sound design, but when you watch a movie, or listen to a movie, I should say, like this one, you really think that there should be. It just adds atmosphere. There's bells and echoes that are always in the background, or eerie wind that you can hear. It just really adds to the tone and to the feel of the film as you're watching it. And it really felt like they went out of their way to make sure that all of the sound and all of the sound design really fit this project. And then the score from David Hart was very intimate. It was very welcoming. It also fit this movie to a T. It had really a sense of like a Celtic adventure. And I also realized that David Hart has scored all of David Lowery's films till this point. This is going to take me to the on-screen talent, and I'll start with Dev Patel, because as this movie is shown to us, he's shot from below, like most of the time, and I really think it makes him look bigger and grander than he actually is. But that's, I think, what his character is representing, like this subtle or retracted hero that's just waiting to come out. But I always, when I see Dev Patel in a movie, I always consider him not to be somebody that's going to be this hero. But he always proves me wrong. And it doesn't have to be an action movie. Like, what comes to mind is that film Lion from a couple of years ago, where he was searching for family members, and he's really an unlikely hero that really just kind of shines through the whole time. There are many parts of this film that it's just him and him alone, and I think in the hands of a lesser charismatic actor, I wouldn't have been able to even sit through this film, but because it's him, he elevates it a little more than any other average actor. He does his best with what's given to him, and I think I said once again, in the hands of a lesser actor, it could have been much worse than this. Alicia Vikander, she's always pleasant and charming, but I really think that this role, or roles I should say, could have been played by any actress. She does do double duty, but I can see any actress with any kind of quality or talent being able to step in and replacing her and not really having anything different in this movie. And just once again, Hollywood just wanted to give this girl an Oscar. So this takes me to Joel Edgerton, who's always quality. He really doesn't have much to do here. Once again, I don't think it's the actor's fault, but he does the best with what is given to him. Now, Sarita Chowdhury, she has a very small role, but very effective. She's really a presence when she's on screen, and she has this piercing look and stare that just like cuts right through you. And I would have loved to have seen her in a bigger part in this film. Now, some of the negatives. Okay, now, to call this movie somber and a slow burn would be the year's biggest understatement. And one of the problems is it assumes that the audience knows everything that's going on when it opens, when the movie opens. Now, I looked at a YouTube video and got like the cliff notes, so I understood what was going on, but if I wouldn't have done that before watching this film, I would have been completely lost for over 2 hours. And I can see where that would be a big turnoff for some of the paying audience members. There are some times when this movie just goes on and on and on continuously for 6-7 minutes, and it's just Dev Patel on a horse in the forest. And I understand that it's pretty and it looks nice, but sometimes it just goes on and on and on and on, and I felt like I was watching Will Smith run in that scene from Ali where it just would never end. Then I hate to use this word, but I am going to use this word. I love David Lowery. I've liked all of his projects, but the word pretentious is really finding its way into this film. Now, he's the writer, he's the director, and he's the editor. Now, usually those are three different people, and the writer comes up with a story, the director adds or infuses what he thinks is good, takes out what he thinks is bad. Then the editor comes in and redoes what the writer and the director have already done to make it a tight, efficient, quality story that people are going to want to see. Okay, let's look at Jaws. You had Peter Benchley, that was an author. Carl Gottlieb, that's a screener, took that, made it into a screenplay, into a movie. Spielberg came in, gave him his ideas. There's 3 creative minds. Then Vera Fields comes in and tightens it all up as the editor. So we have 4 people that make that movie a masterpiece. Then we have The Green Knight, where the same person wrote the story, directed the movie, and now edited the film. So we have 3 people, and nobody's double checking anybody, and nobody wants to say, let's take this out, let's take that out, because it's all the same person in the first place, and they don't want to take anything out of their own work that they're going to hold dear to their hearts. And I understand that. Did I shut the mic off? No? Okay, good. I'm just checking, because that has happened before. So I think that works against the film The Green Knight, that the fact that this is only one person and there isn't anybody double checking his work. But I think the biggest issue when you watch this film is that any normal average person that's paying $15 for a ticket is going to say, this could have been a 45-minute episode of a television show and it was just expanded into 2 hours and 15 minutes. You have to understand that, the first rule of going to the movies is that it has to be entertaining. And if it's not entertaining, then you can make every other rule a bullseye and it's not going to matter with the audience. So at 2 hours and 10 minutes, The Green Knight was a very solid film. However, if you're looking for Conan the Librarian, Highlander, or The Lord of the Rings, this movie just is not for you. Don't even bother watching it if it's on free cable television. Now, I watched this movie at home. I didn't travel or use gas or time. I didn't pay for a ticket. I watched it at home, and that was great. I was fine with that. But if I would have paid $15, I might have been a little more ticked off if I was a paying customer. The Green Knight, it could be a drama, it could be a fantasy, it could be an adventure story, and in my opinion, it's a little bit of all these things, and it doesn't end up being one quality, linear anything, and that really kind of draws back from it again. I just wish that it would have picked one of these things and, and kind of stuck with it. So, if you're a film student, I'm going to say you're going to absolutely love this movie. This is going to be like 4 stars for you. If you're a regular paying customer that just wants to be entertained off the street, this is 1 star and you're going to hate this film. So Nick's review is a mild but still recommended 2.5 stars out of 4, and that's for The Green Knight. Well, I'm afraid that's all the time that I have today, and thank you so much for returning to Nick Iacobucci's movie reviews, because I don't even have a name or a channel pretty much. I'm just like a rogue independent movie reviewer. I'm like the John Frankenheimer of the 1970s filmmaking, but I'm a movie reviewer. That's who I am. But I'm going to end this the way that I've always ended these for years. Remember, people, I'm not always right, but only when it comes to the movies, and thank you very much for your attention. It's nice to be back.